And provides including commentary. Subject. Free Science Theater? Watch that show. They made a modern one. There's like two versions of it. Yeah. This is the old one's better because, you know, like, anything worth doing is worth ruining.
It is 5 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would Pastor Karen Dumey of Westminster Presbyterian come up and lead us in our invocation, please?
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this beautiful evening. We thank you for all of the blessings that we have received, both individually and as a community. Lord, we thank you for all of those who work in the Public Works Department, and we ask that you look over them and bless their work. As the school year ends, Lord, we ask that this summer that our children may be kept safe from every harm, whether it be in their homes, in their yards, in a park, or on the streets. Lord, we ask that you look over and protect our police officers, our fire people, our EMTs. Just keep them safe from every harm, Lord. And Lord, we ask that you give to this council your wisdom, your compassion, and your love, so that the decisions that are made here are pleasing to your will. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, this is the first meeting with our new format where our study session will begin, and then we will immediately go right into our regular session. So hopefully that expedites things, and will also mean that maybe some of you here at the study session will stay for the regular meeting. But we're off and running. The first thing we need to do tonight is have some presentations. Our first proclamation, if you all want to come up here, is the Public Works. There's a big group of Public Works people here for a number of reasons.
You'll have to squish in to get a picture. Squish. Keep going. Stay in, scoot in. We get a picture, you'll need to scoot in.
Whereas public work services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public work systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets and highway, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified, dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Bob Fox, Mayor of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th to 26th, 2018 as Public Works Week in the City of Cape Girardeau. And I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions that the public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Thank you.
This way. You all shift this way, please, so I get you all in the photo. Come to me, yes. Shift down. Mayor, and see if you guys stand in the middle of the room for just a minute. There's a lot of folks here. I want to get a picture. Can you do that? Thank you. Bear with me, y'all. I'm sorry. And squish together. You're all friends. Public Works, people helping people. We're all good friends. There we go. One big happy family. Big smile. Look at me. Who's got the sign? Somebody hold the sign for me. Throw me a vote.
The sign behind you, there you go.
Now we're good. You're on TV. Look at that. Now,
All right.
look at me. Big smiles over here. Thank you.
Before I get to the other proclamations, we're not finished with Public Works yet. The Missouri chapter of the American Public Works Association has a service award called the Vincent A. Tallow Service Award. The intent of this award is to recognize the dedicated service of public works individuals who perform their responsibilities in an exceptionally efficient and courteous manner. This award recognizes public works officials who have honorably and effectively served a single local public agency in official capacity for 30 years or more. We have 5 employees of our public works that are being honored this year. And the first is Randall McLean of the Stormwater Division with over 41 years of service. Are these in order? Yeah, they are.
You can take them out. You can take them out.
I'll take that out. She'll want that for the photo. 41 years. Thank you. The second is Wayne Edmondson of the Sewer Maintenance Division with over 37 years. Here, Wayne, that's yours too. Here, you want this too? The third is Debbie Hillis of the Fleet Maintenance Division. Another 37 years. 37.
Debbie.
Congratulations. Next, Stacy Beasley of Sewer Stormwater, over 30 years of service. You don't think he's here? All right, put that back in there. We'll let them give that to him. Could be. And last but not least is our fearless leader, Steve Cook. Over 40 years. 41.
Let's get a group picture of all of them. That's like 150 years.
Yep, it is.
All right?
82.
Yeah.
We'll add
40 times.
I'm gonna
Count
make-
Stacy, that'd be 5, that'd be almost 200 years. Almost 200 years.
186.
A city can't function without dedicated employees, and boy, is that a perfect example right there. That's unbelievable. We get on to our proclamations. Emergency medical services. Come on up. They were just gonna sit there and let you come up here by yourself.
I know,
They might do that.
that's how we go.
Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventive medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical service system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week with the theme, EMS Strong, Strong Together. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bob Fox, Mayor of the City of Cape Girardeau, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th to 26th, 2018 as Emergency Medical Services Week in the City of Cape Girardeau, and I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities.
Thank you all for the recognition. The true heroes are the ones that just stood up there with 40 years. Them are really true heroes.
Thank you.
Someday, we all got many years to fill you guys' shoes, but yeah, that's quite an honor, you know. But thank you for the recognition. It does mean a lot, and we do appreciate it. These are some cohorts from Cape County Ambulance that also we work hand in hand with, that we're glad they came. And we try our best out there, and we're glad you guys support us. Thank you.
Thank you for all your We have one more proclamation. Gun Violence Awareness Day. Come on up here. Whereas gun violence affects every city across the United States, and whereas gun violence kills more than 90 Americans a day and injures hundreds more, and whereas protecting public safety in our community is one of Cape Girardeau public officials' highest responsibilities, and whereas the city of Cape Girardeau is committed to reducing gun violence and keeping our citizens safe, and whereas through the partnership and collaboration between community and local agencies, we can increase public awareness, address gun violent issues, and focus on ways to reduce crime and improve quality of life. And whereas the city of Cape Girardeau supports responsible gun ownership and stands with Americans across the country for National Gun Violence Awareness. And whereas June 1st, 2018 marks the 4th annual National Gun Violence Awareness Day, the city of Cape Girardeau encourages the community through joint efforts for the 3rd annual Community Prayer March to end gun violence and to remember the victims and their families on June 2nd, 2018. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bob Fox, Mayor of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, do hereby proclaim June 2nd, 2018 as Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of Cape Girardeau. And I call upon all citizens to support Cape Girardeau's efforts to prevent tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Thank you all very, very much. And this week just proved an example that it's around us everywhere in the country.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Communications and reports.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call attention again to the Seniors and Law Enforcement Together memorial service that will happen at Cape Bible Chapel at 6 p.m. on May 24th. That's this Thursday. We're expecting a pretty big crowd because we moved it to 6 p.m. And there'll be agencies there representing the 49 officers in Southeast Missouri encompassing the Troop E area who have lost their lives in the line of duty. So I would hope that you have the time and could come out and see the ceremony. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any council?
I'll add one piece. We don't talk a lot about it here at the council level, but since it is a line item in the budget, I would just, since a liaison to Magnet, I'll just point out that a lot of the pieces of economic development that happen in our community from year to year are a direct result of the work that Magnet and the Chamber do. A lot of it's, until you see dirt moving, you don't hear a lot about it. That's on purpose due to the competitive nature of economic development. But just wanted to kind of mention that since we are at budget time. And I believe in the budget item, I believe it's $67,000 a year contribution to Magnet. And Mayor, you sit on that if there's anything you might add on that.
And it's just the collaboration between those groups works well.
Okay.
Serves us well. Anybody else? I went to a simple board meeting this last week, which was one of the shortest ones I've ever been to, but that's still covered good stuff. And I also was invited to attend the Honorable Young Men's Club banquet and award ceremony, which was, Stacy was there, was fantastic. It's the second year they've had this awards assembly. Last year, they had 22 people there,
Something, yeah, a couple dozen maybe.
a couple of dozen they had it at the junior high. This year, they moved it to the University Center Ballroom and had well over 300. And they recognized all the young men. They started out with 35 young men in this club, and they've grown to 175. And it's impressive that the work they do, that the young men enrolled in this program have less disciplinary issues. They have better attendance. They have a lot better grades. They gave awards for most improved grade point average, best grade point average. And it's really, really, really going to change the way these young men think about the world and about life. And it's a neat program. One thing that really struck me is that one of the young men who started this group was originally from Africa. And he went back, I guess this last year, and came back with some special gifts for the young men who are leaving 8th grade and going to high school. And each one of them got a tie, not this crazy, but it was made out of just a black and white print that was just beautiful. And they got a matching pocket square. And they thought that was really neat. But then through donations, they also said, well, at the end of the summer, we want you to go to Garber's and be fitted for a black sport coat so you can start school as an honorable young man. Big. Neat program. Scott, staff?
A couple items. First of all, the legislature completed their session on Friday, passed a prevailing wage bill that we're still studying a little bit and figuring out what the effects of that are. They passed the ability for a 911 tax on cell phones, and that's another thing we're going to study. And then they passed a telecom bill, which they've been working for some time with, about using of local right-of-ways for telecom. And they came to a compromise on that one. The municipal court bill, which we watched real close, but I don't believe passed. I've not been able to confirm that 100%, but I certainly can't find that it passed. And if it had, we would know. So that was a disappointment. I think we could have improved some things that were in the bill. So those are a report on legislation. Council, I'd like you to think about your schedules. I know we send out a survey on the airport tour. I believe everybody except for Victor can make it Wednesday from 3 to 4. And so if that still meets everyone's approval, we will send out, because all of you will be meeting, so we will send out a notice. There won't be any action or even discussions. It's just a tour, but we will send out a notice since you'll be coming together this Wednesday from 3 to 4. Okay?
3 to 4.
3 to 4, right?
I'll have to leave early.
Yeah.
I can be there at 3.
Okay, good. Good deal. So that'll be all at the airport and conduct that tour. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll be back and meet regarding the special session. That, just so you'll know, in the packet, I think it refers to the potential of doing that on Tuesday, the 23rd, but actually that's Wednesday, the 23rd. So it's Wednesday, the 23rd at 5 o'clock. So it'll be the same day as the airport tour. It'll be at 5 o'clock in my office is what looks correct. Yes.
And where?
In my office.
In your office?
Yeah, it'll be a very short meeting. It'll be open to the public. So we'll have the door open. Anybody can come in. Typically on these, we don't have a lot, so we don't try to set up this room. But should enough people show up that we need to accommodate this room, we can walk down.
Well, Mr. Meyer, we also have a public meeting at 5 o'clock in here Wednesday for the Independence Street
Okay.
traffic study as well. So probably will be your
Yeah,
office.
okay.
And that meeting is just strictly to set the election date
Yeah,
for the Ward 5.
shouldn't last but about 5 minutes.
Short and sweet.
So just wanted to clarify, because there was a little bit of a thing on the information that came out calling it Tuesday, but it is Wednesday. So as we do that. Wanted to communicate that. And so we'll move on to items for
Anything else?
discussion.
We can't just meet at the Sandy's at the airport,
Um,
4 o'clock.
We could.
Right.
Location doesn't matter. Well, we could do
Or,
4.
or 3 or 4.
Yes.
We could do it to begin with.
Oh, because
We could do
We
it
could do
first.
it
Yeah,
first,
it's better for
since
Saturday.
Victor's going to be
Yeah.
there.
That's better for me too.
I
Let's
don't,
do it at 4:01 at the airport.
or 3:01.
3:01.
3 and 4. So we want to do the
At
council.
the beginning or after?
You were gonna have to leave early, right, Victor?
Victor is.
We're doing because they've changed the SALT format, we're doing a complete walkthrough the night or the afternoon before to make sure everything flows well on the day of, and I'm part of that, so I've already promised to be there. 3 o'clock works good for me.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So the
We'll
meeting
just-
at 3, followed by a tour. We'll be at the airport. And we'll be advertising it as a meeting, so it will just now be one meeting. Good idea.
It was a good idea.
Yeah, it's open to the public, yes.
Good deal. All right, that'll make my wife happy because we got couples golf at 5:30. And you want to keep her happy. I'm telling you.
I'm
man.
for that.
Keep her- I thought one of the greatest mistakes I ever made was having her start to play golf. And now it's a big deal
Yeah.
for her. Don't want to miss it.
Nobody's buying that, Mayor Fox.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Planning and zoning, Jeff Glenn. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir. Planning and Zoning Commission met on Wednesday, May 9th. We had a public hearing on the request of Mid-America Hotels Corporation for an exception from Development Code Section 25-506A wall signs at 495 South Mount Auburn Road. Mr. Dan Drury, applicant, Mid-America Hotels Corporation. The commission did approve that request with conditions. The conditions being that the aggregate signage area not exceed the city maximum. Then we also had a public hearing on the request for an exception from Development Code Section 25-506E projecting signs at 400 Broadway. Mr. Jeff Maurer represented the property owner, H&H Center Property LLC. We approved that one with similar conditions about the aggregate signage area. Then we also had a public hearing on the request of Adam and Julia Todd for an exception from Development Code Section 25-604 fence height and surface requirements at 5 Starwood Drive. Adam Wood, the property owner, was in attendance. The commission recommended approval for that. And then we had the Robert Davis subdivision record plat and Mr. Matt DeJournay, the surveyor who prepared the plat for the property owner, was in attendance, and we recommended approval there. And then finally, we took a look at staff recommendations to amend zoning code section 30-406, which involves temporary uses. And we recommended approval of the staff changes to that code.
All right. Anybody have
That's
any
all we
questions?
had. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What kind of projection sign? Is that
It's it lights up at night.
not projected on something, but just a
Right.
LED? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's not an LED. It's kind of to me, it looked like a backlit kind of sign that would glow. Possibly. I didn't drive by and take a look at it. But yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Next is questions and follow-up from our budget study session.
I did have, had one question about cuts that we made prior to, I guess, from the time that we had submittals till as we cut back, what kind of cuts were made or the volume of that. I believe the initial requests were 680 some odd $1,000, give or take a little, over. The available revenue, we also had some ongoing requests that we had to fill. So then that pushed it up another 100 or so thousand. So if you take, so we cut that much. So we had to cut about $300,000 or so to get down to get to where we had the 2% that we then eventually took out as well. So if you take the 2% plus that 300,000, give or take, that's the cuts that we went through and the ongoing costs. So somebody asked me to kind of give a synopsis of that, so that thought maybe during our study session that we had that it almost somebody might be able to think that that's all we cut was the 2%, but no, it was a vast amount of other things that were cut. John and I sat down with every department head and we go line by line. Actually, some things, if you may not believe it, but some things, when you look at the trend, we actually had to raise some things because we also are honest with ourselves and say, that's what's going to be, that's what's going to be. We're not going to just continue to think that it's going to stay the same. So there's a bunch of give and take, but we do go line by line with each one. And that's kind of a scope of where that was. And I think we had some questions today that we're still working on and providing you information on. I should be able to get those out tomorrow.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Nope.
We have a tight budget. I told Scott after our meeting the other night that I'm disappointed about not being able to even get to that 1%. That being said, I'm happy that we're increasing loggers with the one-time cost this year about $700,000, I believe it is. So I am happy about that. I know that there is still work to be done for the loggers to get us up with county and state. I'm confident we can get there in the next years. I think we're going to be posed with the question or the finding out what we need to do to increase revenue in the general fund. We all know that. Getting going and getting started on that sooner than later this year is going to be important. Scott having those discussions with business owners and finding out if indeed it is a possibility for moving forward with use tax is going to be important. So not all gloom and doom. There are some positives out of this too. So all I'd add.
Anybody else? If not, appearances regarding items not on the agenda. Is there anybody here to please come forward?
Hello.
Would you please state your name and your address, please?
Yes, my name is Robin Ketting, and I live at 1725 Bessie Street.
Okay.
Okay. I just am here today on behalf of the people that in the 1600 and 1700 block of Bessie, in regards to all of the tree removal that's going on that block right in that area right now. We want to see if there's anything that we can do to stop it. We understand that when you do the street repairs, that the federal regulation states that the sidewalks have to be brought up to code, and we completely understand that. All of our sidewalks are already 5 feet wide. They've been measured by my 16-year-old daughter up and down with the tape measure. There are some spots on the sidewalks that are iffy, and we understand that there may be spots that need to be repaired and fixed in order to be in compliance with that regulation. However, that neighborhood, that Sunset neighborhood, is established and it's beautiful, and people choose to live there based on some of the character that the age provides. And taking away all of our trees is going to really take away from that overall landscape of our neighborhood. The trees also help with our utility bills. They help with our property values. There's just has to be a better solution than to take all of them. If there are some that are in poor health. We all know that. We're all aware of which ones those are. And those need to come down, obviously, for everyone's sake. And we understand also that they're in the city property, but they are part of our home on that block. So I guess that's really what my biggest concern and the neighborhood's biggest concern is. What can we do to maybe preserve some of them if we can?
Okay.
That's about it.
Mr. Mayor, I walked those 2 blocks last week, and the residents have a sidewalk that appears to be fully functional. It's the right width. There are a couple trees, and I took pictures, that encroach slightly. We're talking less than 3 inches in 2 cases onto the concrete. Basically, it's an overgrowth over the concrete. It's not tearing the concrete up. And I feel that based upon the values of the community and the citizens that live on the street and the mature trees that are there, that it would behoove us to at least try to find some way to preserve the neighborhood in a manner that both complies with our regulations but meets residents' needs for the trees, the shade, the quality of life along these mature neighborhoods. If I lived there, I would feel the same way. But I did walk the streets. I did look at the sidewalks. I am not on the tree board. I know they were there at some other time. I'm not an engineer, but I do have a wife who's in a wheelchair. And if I was to push her down both blocks on a wheelchair, there would be no impedance to her moving down the street on those sidewalks. So surely we can at least try to work with these people and repair these sidewalks in a manner that fits the need of the regulations and the desire of the community.
Personally, I don't know exactly what all those regulations are. I know that it not only deals with trees and their proximity to the sidewalk, it also deals with the grade either way. And I don't know where that lies, whether it's possible to, whether all of it has to be replaced, whether we can repair some of it. I don't know. I would think if you have a tree that's growing over the sidewalk though,
Absolutely.
that's not a good thing because it's just going to get worse.
Possibly, but it has not broken the sidewalk at this point. It's just bark that's actually just grown over the top.
Well, I'm not.
And with 5 feet, I can easily get a wheelchair through there. So
I believe, I don't know, Jake's not here, so Molly, I don't know if you, I know there are standards that we don't have, even the practicality of it, we have to meet those standards in order to basically have permission to resurface the road. So I don't know if there's other things that we missed, but we did meet with the tree board, looked at options. I mean, this cost us more money than that we didn't expect to spend on our resurfacing program. So every dollar we spend, we don't want to spend, we'd rather not spend it. So I don't know if you or Alex can address some of the other concerns.
Sure, absolutely. With anytime we do an asphalt overlay project like this, we are required to bring the sidewalks up to ADA compliance, which includes not only the 5-foot width, but the 2% cross slope. But we do go out, we survey the entire sidewalk and those projects boundaries. And there are areas where the roots have pushed the curb out, pushed the sidewalk. And so when we bring the sidewalk up into compliance, not only are we trying to remedy that, but when we cut the sidewalk out and put new, we're going to be cutting those tree roots. And so even though it may not, the tree may be marginal right now, once we go in and do that work, it will damage those tree roots and eventually probably result in that tree's death. Obviously, we understand the value it provides the neighborhood. and nobody likes to take a tree down, but we also have to understand there's liability there. If the tree were to fall on someone's home, property, et cetera, that we have to look out for that safety as well. So it's a balancing act trying to comply with the ADA regulations, also achieving the street repair, which is ultimately what the project is. And so it's tough. I know that we did go out door to door. We tried to walk the neighborhood with the tree board as well, assess the condition of the trees. As you said, there are some that are already in bad condition, and those that aren't there yet, we think will be damaged by the work that we're going to be doing to this sidewalk.
I think our biggest concern is, while we understand that not all of them maybe need to come down, I think that's, if we're willing to, we understand that some of them are in poor health, some of them are impeding the sidewalk, some of them will potentially be damaged by the repairs that need to be done to specific places. But the ones that aren't, this where the sidewalk is okay, and the sidewalk is wide enough, and there's no overgrowth, why would we want to even mess with that? Would cost you guys money that doesn't need to be spent to repair sidewalk that isn't damaged and is already wide enough.
Right, without knowing the exact location of those particular trees and knowing what the slope is and what work needs to be done in those specific locations, I really can't talk to that right now, but we can certainly have Jake go through it with you. He's the project manager, and explain why we need to do what we need to do in those locations.
I don't know if there's a way we can mark the ones that are okay and say, leave these alone. Or
Are there,
I think, what, her suggestion is meet with Jake, and I think Jake will probably maybe be available tomorrow. And if he is, as soon as he's available, that would be the best, because he's very familiar with it all. And again, any payment we can save, that's good for us.
Right.
But we also have to balance that liability issue, and that's the hard one, because you can either say it's going to die or it's not, and that's the reason we have tree board and folks that know that stuff pretty well. But
if there are sections of that sidewalk that are not impeded and not cracked, do we take up the whole thing and replace it, or?
Again, it really depends. I'd have to talk to Jake to get a better understanding, but if there's multiple panels that have to be taken out and we have to achieve the 2% cross slope, then sometimes it just makes more sense to take it all out and put new in. I'd have to talk to Jake and get a better understanding of the total condition.
and if you're changing the ramp portion down here, it may affect for some time, because you only have a 1 to 16 slope that you can work out. So it goes a lot further. The impacts of a small change here go, 16 feet for every inch that you have to do to move along the sidewalk. So it compounds really quickly. Again, our preference and what we did for years was we repaired the road separate from sidewalk repairs. We no longer have that luxury.
Molly, from a liability standpoint, if we didn't and we disrupted some of those roots and something happened with one of those trees, that liability falls on us, right? After we've touched it.
Yes, I mean, if we've done street work there, and it may take a couple years for the tree to perish, but I think ultimately one could make a case that the work that we did harmed the tree, caused its
Fell on a house.
falls on a house, falls on a car.
Liability.
It's
on
our
us.
tree, our right of way, our risk.
And that's that liability piece that's.
Right. And we understand that exists, and we obviously don't want anyone to get hurt or injured or homes to be crushed or anything like that. We're just saying if the sidewalk is okay and the tree isn't bothering it, why mess with something that isn't?
Well, that's
broken?
where they need to look at, they need to look at the grade and see how it does.
Right.
Scott,
I think, oh, go ahead.
are you saying though that if you're doing road repair, you have to also concurrently do sidewalk?
Yes, you have to make
Upgrade.
the ADA accommodation required by.
So even if it looks fine and everybody's fine and there's enough space and no cracks or whatever, if it's off.
If it doesn't meet the current standard,
Uh-huh.
1 to 16 and the cross slopes and the
That's federal
ramp
ADA
in
stuff.
At the curb lines, if it
Our
doesn't meet
federal
all those
government at work.
things, then you got to fix it. Now, there may be that we can, and I'm sure we tried to save as much pavement as made sense. because taking and leaving some, there's issues with that as well, and can be more expensive. But we have also looked, I know, is it Rotary Rotary that was, or
Yes.
I was going to suggest.
they're going to work with us on some trees. They want to plant some trees. So we hope to work with them to provide you back some trees during that. We haven't met with them yet, but we hope to at least do that and provide, a good place for those to be planted and work with you on that. Not much.
Unfortunately, they won't be 50
yeah.
years beautiful.
Yeah.
No, they won't.
The old saying, it's best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best time is today.
Right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else to appear before the council for any item that is not on our agenda this evening?
My name is Karen Schleier, and I am in the process of purchasing the 2 buildings that New Beginnings Ministries had that had the homeless shelter in the past. I know I need to go to talk to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I just wanted to present that so that if there's any issues.
Can you give us the address of those?
Yeah, not exactly. It's right across on Williams from that new AM/PM that they're revising. So up from Family Dollar.
So it's on William Street.
Williams and Hanover, corner of
The
Williams and Hanover.
old B&H, not B&H, but it's It's AM/PM there. It used to be, there's a church there, it's like
There's a
purple
church
with a
there,
purple sign.
and the church, they've sold the people who were doing it before have retired. They sold the church, and then they had as a church built, bought the building next door as a men's
That's what it
shelter,
was,
and then
yeah.
the one on Hanover as the female
Used to
shelter.
be AO, right?
And I
Building.
plan
Yeah, it
to
used to be insurance.
use the female shelter as a home, but the male shelter, which is on Williams, on the corner of Williams and Hanover, would again be a homeless shelter. And I think it's already zoned for residential.
Well, that's something you'd have to take to planning and
I
zoning.
will, but I just wanted to make sure that the town is in support of.
I
something
believe
like
there's also a sprinkler requirement.
that. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of requirements, but
And,
they've already been met by, it's been a homeless shelter for years. It's just been closed down for about 2 years.
Okay, I would say at this point,
Yep.
go to planning and zoning and it'll come back to us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Karen.
Anybody else to appear before the council for anything that's not on our agenda this evening? If not, we'll move into agenda review.
Yes, council, staff's asking us that we remove item number 11. This item is being removed because upon further input, we believe we need an easement on this. Previously, we didn't think we were going to need an easement, so vacating that was okay without that, but with needing an easement, we need to get that as done at the same time. Because if we vacate it, then we really have no leverage to make sure that we get the easement. So this will allow us some time. We will go ahead and have the hearing, public hearing for the vacation, because we don't want to have to re-advertise for that. So we'll have that tonight, and people have an expectation. But we'll remove item number 11 at the adoption of the agenda, and then it'll come maybe next couple meetings. It will come both vacation as well as the easement.
Any questions on that? No?
In addition, I was going to ask police, as Officer Draghi is here, to talk a little bit about the body worn cameras and the process you went through and kind of some of the features that you have regarding body worn cameras.
Brought one along, I'll just look at it while Our testing process took over, I'd say, at least 2 years. We really took our time, went through every camera we could find. Turns out once you start asking companies for cameras, somehow they all find out and they all start flooding you with emails and calls and explaining why theirs is the best, no, mine's the best, and mine's the best. But in the end, we came down to a company called G-Tech. They're a really good company. They started their industry in laptops, built up a really good name. and then they decided to move into body cameras as well. For us, what differentiated them, what made them the best, at their level, all cameras are pretty great. The functionality of this one is very simple. It's a good size, wasn't too heavy, wasn't overcrowding the officers' uniforms like other ones we looked at. They liked, if you're looking, Councilman Gunn, on that wheel on front, that helps catalog video, which decreases a lot of the officers' time they'll have to spend with the video then, making sure it's cataloged properly. So that'll save them some time there. And especially what made them one of the best for us, 2 reasons. One, the docking system is one of a kind. No one else had one like that. It'll take video off the camera up into the cloud in minutes. When other places we're looking at, it would take an hour or 2 per camera, per officer. And that's just time we can't afford to be giving officers, making them sit by a dock or do something else without the camera for an hour or 2 just to get the video uploaded. So for this one, it was minutes to get it off and up in the cloud and then get back on their day, home to the family, whatever it is. And 2, their back-end software is the best one I came across. It was very easy to use, user-friendly. It's simple for an officer to log in, look at his videos. I said catalog, make sure they're tagged properly so that we can find them for court or whatever else later on. And so all that being combined, it was our best option.
I think some of the software was also really time intensive to do the blurring of the faces and all that. I know.
We never really got too hands-on with the redaction during testing. It does have redaction built into its software, which will help. And they also have a contract with, I believe, Microsoft. So for if it's a bigger case or a more intricate, detailed thing that would take us more time or that we have, that you can send it off to them and they would just redact it and get it back to you.
So what was the officers think about these being rolled out?
Everyone I've talked to has been excited. Like I said, since we have taken our time with this, like I said, over years testing them. I know early on when we first started testing resistance, they weren't really sure what's going on. Is this going to be, are the bosses spying on me? Are they trying to just, get me in trouble all the time? Or it's a hindrance? As cops, we don't really love change. So even the idea of, I have to move my microphone to put a camera on my shirt. Oh no, that's a big deal. But over time, to start testing officers, we rotated them around so everyone kind of got a feel, or at least each shift would get a feel, understand, and they saw the benefit pretty right away. The reports got better, they had to go to court a little bit less. So I think everyone's excited for it to get going.
I didn't see, when is delivery on this?
We have not have a final date yet. I think after we get the contract agreed upon and signed, it might take another 4 to 6 weeks after the purchase order, just depending on the stock they have at the warehouse at that point in time.
Hopefully in the next 3 months.
Yes.
It's designed to be worn about where your microphone's at.
It kind of depends. This has a good variety of clips. The most popular clip is a shirt clip that would go into it. Folds into both sides of the shirt, sits on a button, so it's the most secure. It's snug in there, can't move around, can't be torn off. With an outfit like mine, this is a vest, not a shirt. So there's not anything here to really, there's a bit to hook on, but it wouldn't really work. They make a magnet that's pretty strong, and so that can be placed. I wear mine up in the shoulder area because the magnet can slide up in there and snap on, and I just like how it fits up there better. So the magnet gives people a lot of variety. It'll help get them on the outside of a coat in wintertime so they don't get it covered up by a coat, because then that's not helpful to anyone. Yeah, there's a couple different clips we're going to go with because each officer has one or two different uniforms. So that way they're not handicapped by their own outfit.
But there will be some guidelines on where it's worn.
Yes, upper torso. Nothing, no belt. It's got to be up here. It's got to be facing forward. It's got to have a good video. And we'll be reviewing officers' videos a lot early on just to make sure it's all working out properly.
Glad to see you found a better option. Whenever I had done a ride along with Chief Blair, they were testing out one of the non-cloud-based, and one of the officers was nicely complaining about how long it took to download his shift. So that's really neat.
Yeah,
so this isn't going to bring officers in early off shift to complete downloads and things like that.
No, and that's how we went with this one with that excellent dock, because that way it's more about keeping them late. So if you could, and that way, the other system we're looking at was a one where you would have to just leave it docked there overnight. So the officer would just leave it there overnight, come back, it's dumped fully clean and it's fully charged, but our officers have the emergency vehicle response. And so they respond to calls to and from work. So asking them to do their job without that piece of equipment that we're getting for them just didn't make a lot of sense to us. And so with this one, where they can get that video off in minutes, that way they have it with them to and from work. And again, yeah, they're not staying late. They're not having to sit there burning overtime just to done video.
Battery replaceable, like if you.
Not on these are built in, but the contract does come with a warranty. So if there's any ever an issue or something malfunctions, it's just a swap out.
My concern was longevity at let's say we had a Joplin tornado or something and you're working for 15, 16 hours.
Yeah, that battery would not last, but there's no battery on the market that would last.
I understand, but it's not interchangeable with a fresh.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They do have individual docks that could equip their car with that in their dock. And so if they would need to in a situation like that where they can't afford to take it off for a little
Very
bit.
rare.
We ordered 150, so I guess that gives us plenty of cushion.
Excuse me?
Is that 150? Did I read that wrong?
50.
50.
50,
I think we're
sorry.
doing 53 now, just to give us some cushion. 53.
Yeah.
That equips all of patrol and traffic, and it has some spares for that swap out for the warranty, and then in case a detective might need to take one for a critical case. Yes. And speaking to longevity as well, the contract also has a second year refresh. So in 2 years, they just give us a new camera, the newest model, whatever have you. They swap them all out just to make sure nothing's malfunctioning. You get the best technology at your hands at all times.
That's a good deal. Great deal there.
Thanks for the briefing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And the last item I have on agenda review is just, we already covered it under other business about the meeting, so we have agreed to a time on that. So I believe that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. If that's the case, we will move right into our regular session. And I'll call this regular session to order and have a roll call.
It logged me out. Hold on.
That catch you by surprise.
We're still trying to.
Yeah, here. Mr. Essex?
Here.
Mayor Fox?
Here.
Mr. Guard?
Here.
Mr. Gunn?
Here.
Ms. Kinder? Here. Ms. Moore? Here. Mr. Preston?
Okay. We'll now have public hearing.
We adopt the agenda.
We have to adopt the agenda first. Sorry about that.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda, but remove item 11.
Second.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second? Mr. Moore, seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now the public hearing. A public hearing to consider vacating the city's interest in unimproved Carruthers Avenue right-of-way from Dunklin Street to New Madrid Street in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill number 18-74, agenda item 11. Is there anybody here this evening to appear before the council for this public hearing? Anybody here? If not, we'll close the public hearing. We will not address item 11 because it's been removed. We'll take care of that later. Are there any appearances here tonight from anybody for items on the agenda? Anybody appear before the council on any item that is on the agenda this evening? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Eric?
Number 18-66, an ordinance renaming Highland Drive running south from Old Hopper Road to West Highland Drive in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. An ordinance renaming Highland Drive running south from Old Hopper Road to West Highland Drive in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Number 18-67, an ordinance repealing a portion of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri relating to horizontal balusters. An ordinance repealing a portion of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri relating to horizontal balusters. Number 18-69, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a special tax bill for property located at 811 South Randy Avenue for the demolition of a dangerous building under provisions Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of a special tax bill for property located at 811 South Roundy Avenue in the city for the demolition of a dangerous building under provisions of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau. Number 18-72, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a special tax bill for property located at 615 Rear Good Hope Street for the demolition of a dangerous building under provisions of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of a special tax bill for the property located at 615 Rear Good Hope Street for the demolition of a dangerous building under provisions of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Number 18-73, an ordinance accepting a general warranty deed and a temporary construction easement from TMK Group LLC for the independent sidewalk project in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. An ordinance accepting a general warranty deed and temporary construction easement from TMK Group LLC for the independent sidewalk project in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Number 18-75, a resolution authorizing city manager to execute an agreement with GTAC Video Solutions to provide police department with body-worn cameras to be deployed on patrol officers in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Thank you, Eric. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Guard, second by Mrs. Kinder. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. New ordinances. Bill number 1876, an ordinance approving the record plat of Robert Davis subdivision. First reading. Motion by Mr. Guard. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moore. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 18-77, an ordinance approving a record plat of Regents Park Phase 2. First reading. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded by our two newest council members. Any discussion?
I need to abstain from that due to financial conflict of interest.
Got that? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Bill number 18-78, an ordinance appropriating economic development expenditures pursuant to a redevelopment agreement with Old Town Cape Historic Landmark Preservation Group, LLC, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. First reading.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Gunn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dan Preston. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have two appointments tonight. First to the Town Plaza Community Improvement District Board of Directors, and that will be Mr. Jeffrey Campbell. Second is an appointment to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and that appointment is Ms. Beverly Evans. We really don't have any other business.
We'll need a motion on those.
Oh, we do need a motion on those.
On each
I'm
of them
sorry. On
separately.
each of them
So moved.
separately.
On
Town Plaza?
Town Plaza.
Town Plaza. Any discussion?
Second.
Second by Stacy.
Second by Stacy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Parks and Rec Board. Robbie
Second.
moves, second by Victor. Any discussion? If not, all those say, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have already set our special council meeting.
Motion.
We need a motion to do that.
So moved.
That will be at 3 o'clock at the airport, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yes.
Cape Aviation Conference Room.
Good. Got a first and a second.
First and a second. Mr. Moore seconded.
He was first.
All those
Did you
in
get that?
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move to adjourn.
Gail, are you caught up?
Yes.
Okay.
Gail's pretty
Format's got
sharp.
us going.
Yeah.
It's got everybody's on the ball.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I
Adjourn
hear?
into closed session and then adjourn this session at the completion of the closed session. Is that right? Did I say it?
I didn't know it was.
Yes, that's right. We do have to have a closed session this evening. The City Council of Cape Girardeau needs to have a closed session to discuss issues listed in RS Missouri Section 610021 concerning personnel issues, confidential or privileged communications with its attorneys. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Gunn, second by Mr. Guard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will go to closed session.
So did, Scott, so we go in closed session.
Yes. And at the completion of that, we are adjourned. We don't have to come back in here.
Okay.
Huh?